We also, the majority of the board, and I mean, I know we all received many emails from people who were very upset about the cutting of the library, which wouldn't be able to operate. So we try to restore as much money as we could. Unfortunately, it's not the amount they normally get, but we got them pretty close to it. And there was also many layoffs that we had to do, which Councilman Gross and I today personally told the affected employees that they were going to be laid off. It was very difficult for them, obviously. It was very difficult for us to do it. But there really is not much fat in this budget at all. I don't think there's any fat. And it is what it is. We have many unfunded mandates from the state. As you said, the price of oil and gasoline is going up. The retirement costs are going up. Health care costs for our employees are going up. These are things that are out of our control. Last year's budget, which you prepared, had $200,000 in money that was you put in for the planning board fees. We only received $50,000. So we were $150,000 in the hole right there.
That's pertinent to the 2010 budget. Tonight we're talking about the 2011
I understand
budget.
that, but that's all part of the problem. That's why that money didn't appear this year, and that's why we had we don't have any money in our reserve accounts.
That's not true, Bob. The reason we don't have the unexpended fund balance was spent because $850,000 was allocated by a 3-2 vote last year to cover the shortfall between the tax increase and what was spent. In other words, they overspent by $850,000, and I voted against that budget.
I would like to comment on a few things you've said. First of all, by the determination of the town CPA, who's based out of Port Chester and has been doing the town of Southeast for some time, who Mr. Wrights has never met and spoken with, at least as of last week, his budget was a 2.25% increase. So there is about a 6-7% differences. But we have, as Mr.
Roger,
Collins said, let me just finish,
budget
please.
to budget, not the tax increase.
That's what it comes down to in dollars. In addition, we need an assessor and we need a tax collector. I have a letter here from the county executive to the Putnam legislature talking about consolidation, dated November 17, 2010, and talking about the possibility, but it requires, as I said 2 or 3 weeks ago, planning. And I would ask the supervisor, in talking about consolidation with such offices, to get with the new government that comes to town in January and talk about consolidation so that the county can anticipate and put it in their budget. Talking about something the county has already had their budget set in place is irrelevant. It can't work. We have to plan for these things.
We did.
And that's what,
2 years ago,
the county's not prepared to do it, and the
$60,000.
correspondence I have validates that.
This year, I budgeted $25,000, and you're saying it's not possible.
It's not possible.
The county's telling us. It's right here.
I spoke with County Executive Bondi today, and he confirmed that the tax receiver department can function, can receive taxes in Carmel. That would be an enormous savings to
Michael,
town
I
taxpayers.
spoke to him myself on Friday.
Well, I spoke to him today.
And that is not what he told me.
Well,
And
and
I'm
he
sorry,
told-
not on Monday I spoke
And
to
if
him.
we don't fund the tax receiver's office, by law, the county has to step up to the plate and handle the tax receiving.
Well, I'm gonna give this letter to Ruth, and we could put it on the website for tomorrow. I don't want to read it tonight. It's pretty long, but it's from the county executive, and it's to the legislator, and it basically just says that, you know, in the future, consolidation is quite possible, but as far as the assessment services, the only way that the county would consider doing this, not in 2011, but in 2012, would be if numerous towns in the county sign on. And they're not going to do it if just we are the only town. So next year, as Councilman Gross said, we have a new county executive coming on board. We should give him a couple of months to settle in, and then we should sit down with him, and some of the other town supervisors should sit down and see if this is something that everyone is interested in, and then the county could go forward. The county does not have an assessor at this time that can assess property. And as far as the tax receiver, the county executive told me on Monday that he did have a conversation with you on Friday. He said in theory it is possible, but they're not really equipped right now to do it. You know, there's over 7,000 parcels in the town of Southeast. They don't right now have the manpower to process it, but it is something going forward that would be easier to do than the assessor. but it is something, again, that needs planning. It shouldn't be retaliatory, as his letter says, which I think part of your, the reason you want to consolidate these departments
That's not
are.
true, Bob.
No,
I
no,
proposed
no.
it on prior years too with a different assessor.
No,
It's
but
redundant
anyway, so
service.
it's
We have one
something-
tax receiver, one tax assessor in Southeast. We have one tax receiver and an Office of Real Property Services in the county, and that is one too many in each instance.
No.
We're all paying for all of it.
And the bottom line, of course, is, once again, you have to examine the fact that we will lose the homestead exemption.
That's not
We've
true,
said this
Liz.
over and over again,
Yeah, but
and I would ask,
there's an opinion from
that
a-
I not be interrupted by the supervisor, because we don't interrupt him. There is a need for us
And
to
be
continue to have the homestead exemption. The homestead exemption is something that benefits people in our town who have homes, not necessarily the condominiums or the townhouses. We will lose that homestead exemption. The supervisor can say all he wants over and over again, how it will not be lost, but I did an analysis last year which holds true. This is an empty promise. I also would like everyone here to
promised by
know
the Office of
that,
Real
once
Property
again, I would
Services.
appreciate not getting interrupted.
And be accurate.
And then, on top of it, I am very accurate, and I don't lie to the people like other people. So what I want to know right now for all of you is the fact that we will lose our homestead exemption, and in losing the homestead exemption, you're going to lose money. And guess what, everyone? The county is going to charge you for these services. These services are not going to be given free to us. On top of it, you will have people from other towns potentially doing your assessments. I don't know how that sits with you, but I like our town doing our assessments, people from our town. So there's a lot to look at. Of course, if it makes sense in the long run, and it's something that works well for the town, that's a great thing. But just remember that we were told initially, and I did not ever adhere to this, that there was going to be a county dump was going to be dumped in our town of Southeast. When I first came on this board, nothing had been done for a number of years, including the past 2 years, regarding it. And then all of a sudden, we have to get this done quickly. Well, we didn't do that. We didn't agree to have the county transfer their garbage to us. And it's all worked out, by the way. And we did it at less of a cost than anyone would have ever admitted or ever had. Therefore, please, just remember, this is a great town, and we have to continue to work towards what's in our best interests. As far as the budget's concerned, it's a difficult budget. It was a difficult first budget for me to look at, for me to be involved in the preparation of, and I will tell you that a lot of people out there are going to be disappointed, and a lot of you won't be disappointed to a certain degree. I received personally many emails from many people who were supporting the library and the museum. The supervisor's budget gave the library 0. The museum, 0. I believe the animal control, or the Humane Society, 0. The tax assessor, 0. The tax collector, 0. So you have to understand that in order to restore these monies, that there has to be a tax increase. We came here as far as using $800,000, and the supervisor was not involved in that? No, that's not true. That's not true. When you look online, go online, you can see the town supervisor's proposed budgets from last year. It's the same. They're looking at the same revenue sources.
That's not true, Liz. They added $400,000 on a different budget line.
So the bottom line is, please do me a favor and look at the history of everything and realize that if we gave you no tax increase, and even then, the supervisor's proposed or the tentative budget had included a tax increase. So your
No,
bottom line at
it was
this point
dollar
is,
for dollar,
what
zero.
we need, it was not dollar for dollar.
It was
And
dollar for
remember,
dollar, zero.
the supervisor is your chief financial officer and doesn't even realize that.
Liz,
So what
that's
you
not
need to
true.
do is you need to look at all of this, realize that in order to fund these services, we needed to do something. We needed to increase taxes. Unfortunately, we needed to lay off people. So, I mean, if things get better, of course, we can always do a mid-course correction, but you all know what's happening with the economy. And I thank you all for your patience with this budget.
My property tax freeze as proposed was dollar for dollar the same in 2011 compared with 2010. That's why it was called a property tax freeze.
I
Yes.
would like to comment, the percentages we're talking about, if your home is assessed at $373,000, it's $4.40 a month. That's what the dollar is that would cost you, $4.40 a month. If your property is valued more, of course, it's closer to $5 a month, but just to give that idea. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to make one other comment in lieu of what Bob had said. Bob and I spent a good part of the day talking to our very conscientious and very outstanding performers in our community as far as the town is concerned, the town government. And we had to lay off 5 people today. Some took it well, some had tears. It was not a very nice day. And some of these people I've known for years, and it made it quite unpleasant. We have a responsibility to our employees, but we have a responsibility to the residents to bring in a legitimate budget that will meet the needs, which Liz has talked about and Bob has talked about, meet the services, give you the services that you expect a town government to deliver. And in order to do that, we had to raise the budget up to 9.95%, and we had to lay off 5 people. We're hoping if things improve, we can bring some of these folks back. It just was not a nice thing, and I want you to know that. And I also would like you to know that every department in this town government was hit. There was no prejudice. Everybody got their hit. And so there's anger all around, and it just was an unpleasant situation. I want to add one other thing to reemphasize this. The supervisor did cut the library to 0. He did cut the museum to 0, and we restored over 90% of the funding to the library. I know a lot of library people are here today. It's over $180,000 we've restored to the library. The museum is at $40,000. So we're making an effort to satisfy all these different avenues of community needs, and that's what we had to do.
Well, there's a significant gravy train component, Roger. And one is the tax collector's office is up relative in this 3rd draft, even relative to the 2nd draft. The tax assessor is up significantly. Legal is up significantly. Now let's look at what you cut in the 3rd draft. The fire safety, cut. I didn't cut it. Planning, cut. Planning generates revenues. Highway mechanical and highway total. Highway is one of our, protection and safety is one of our central core missions as a municipal government. And for example, the brush and weeds component, cut in the third version, the 3rd draft, by over $50,000. Now, earlier tonight, I had mentioned, I directed your attention to the brush and weeds enhancement that we had to just do, and here you are cutting more than $50,000 out of brush and weeds next year. Safety, highway safety, fire safety, building safety is, and code enforcement is one of our core missions, and I disagree with the precepts of this budget to enhance the gravy train components at the expense of everything else.
Let's talk about the gravy train, okay? If there is such a train, you are the chief engineer and the head conductor and the fireman.
Roger, I voted against.
May I have the floor now, please?
I voted against.
I'm not quite done yet.
not true.
I'm not
I
quite
voted
done
against
yet.
that budget.
Mr. Wrights is the chief financial officer for this town. He makes $18,500 to do that job. We've cut that job down to, I think, $2,000 or so, because we're going to take control of it. We're going to have monitor it month by month because he simply did not do his job. To be candid with you, you know, they talk
Not
about
true.
being asleep at
I
the
offered to
switch.
give $10,000
Our
to the
chief
library.
financial officer doesn't know where the switch is. He's totally out of control as far as what
Roger,
we're
this
doing
is
here,
personal.
and we're
Talk
trying to
about the
correct
budget.
it. I'm going to say one other thing, if I could. Harrison, 6.7% increase. Rye, 2.1%. Eastchester, 22%. Many of the towns are in the 2% category. We had a $600,000 hole we found out in September, and we're taking action to correct it. The incompetence of the chief financial officer is obvious, and we're going to correct this thing, hopefully bring most of these people back. But I just want to emphasize, you talk about the cuts, that where you save money in a town or in a government is through personnel and salaries. It's unpleasant, believe me. The city of New York is laying off 10,000 people. Westchester County, 280 people at last count. State, hundreds of jobs in the state. I was even laid off from the Senate office when the majority changed the New York State Senate back in April of 2009. I know what it's like to get your pink slip. They don't want to keep you, but they can't. So there are a lot of highway people here tonight. There are people from other departments. It's very unpleasant, and believe me, I feel your pain. We do. It's not pleasant. I didn't like today at all. It was very unpleasant. But we have to move forward and supply the services that the town and the community expect. And that's where we are at this budget. It's totally candid. If we have a problem with some other things in the town, like heating and air conditioning here, we're going to have to scrounge around for funds to cover that. It's a very tight budget. That's why we'll be checking it every month, and if a mid-year correction is needed, we will have to do that. We're going to get us out of this hole.
May I have the floor, please?
Yes.
Mr. Gross, the savings is not